What if I tell you that in 2025, it is still very possible to grow your SaaS completely organically at zero cost and does not require you to go viral? Hi, my name is Han. I've been helping clients automate parts of their business, predominantly in marketing, and I've also been using this exact system to grow my YouTube channel steadily. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing the marketing strategy with the largest arbitrage opportunity right now that only a small group of business owners are using and leaving their competitors in the dust. This method costs you no money and at the same time bringing you highly qualified traffic to your landing page. Now make sure to stick around till the end because I'll be showing you the strategy, how founders are taking advantage of it, how the system works, and finally how you can automate it. Promote your product organically on Reddit. This is the answer. Now it sounds easy to do, but extremely hard to execute. Because here's the truth. Most subreddits are against users promoting their products selfishly. Because at the end of the day, Reddit is still a community-based platform to share, learn, and help each other. Failure to comply will get you banned. Now trust me on this because I've got 2 of my accounts banned for this very reason. But that is exactly why I can show you how to avoid them. Anyways, because Reddit is such a community-centric platform, users are way more likely to respond to your posts as long as it genuinely adds value. A few posts, when done right, is all you need to get your SaaS product going and getting your first set of paying customers. Don't take this from me, but from all these guys who has blown up their SaaS just by posting high-value content at the right time and on the right subreddits. This may sound overwhelming, but don't worry, because in this video, we're going to be breaking down how they have done it and how you can do it too. Alright, let's start by taking a look at a few success stories of users who has gotten their first set of paying customers via Reddit organically. And so here we have 3 examples that we're going to be using. So in this particular post, you can see that the user has mentioned got 83 users and growing. It was 2 months ago when I launched my app. Now 82 users onboarded, 28 alone in the past 48 hours. Since I started to post and comment consistently on Reddit, the results are becoming good. I have prepared a streak to engage and get as many users as possible and succeed to get my first sale in this month. My app is found here in case you want to try it. Thanks so much. So you can see that for this particular user, his product only started gaining a lot of traction in the last 48 hours once he started to post and comment consistently on Reddit. Now, if you click into this user to see what he's doing exactly, let's go to his post section and we'll see that, okay, he has scaled to 100 users 7 hours ago. And if you scroll all the way down, you'll see that just 6 days ago, he made a post that he's essentially starting from scratch because he said, now I'm at the point that I feel like everything is good enough to be marketed again. So I'm planning to get at least 1 customer in the next 50 days. And so we can assume that 7 days or 6 days ago, he has effectively 0 users. And then just by consistently posting on Reddit for the past 7 days, he has managed to get to 100 users. And from this example alone, you can already see the power of engaging and posting your product on Reddit. Now, if we take a closer look at the post that he actually makes, so here we have, he posted in micro SaaS, my dev tool is live and growing. So this is more like a celebratory kind of post. And then in here, in vibe coding community, he posted my vibe planning tool is kind of growing. And then he also did the same kind of post. Like the content is the same, but he essentially tweaked the title a little bit. It was 2 months ago, which is the exact same thing. And then the exact same thing in the SaaS community as well. And so what you can see here is that this user has made the same post across multiple subreddits or community. But the smart thing that he did here was that he tweaked the title in such a way that it matches the tone of the community. For example, in vibe coding, he has said vibe planning tool is kind of growing. So it's in a way kind of like tailoring it to how the community and how the people in vibe coding subreddit usually speaks. Whereas in the micro SaaS and SaaS community, he's positioning his post more towards user acquisition because that is more relevant to the 2 communities there. And so what he said was, got 83 users and growing, or I got 30 users in the last 2 days. And so it is very important to make sure that your post, even though it has the same content, that the title of the post as well as some parts of the body itself needs to be tailored closely to the community that you're posting in. Otherwise, it's very easy for people to find out that you're just repurposing the same exact post into multiple subreddits And that's the easiest way to your account getting banned. And another personal note here is that it is best practice to post only 2 to 3 times across multiple subreddits in a single week. I think in this case, this user has kind of like posted the same post across 3 different subreddits in a span of 2 days. But I think a better approach is to kind of like space it out across a week. For example, maybe every 2 days you will make a post. So the first day of the week, 4th day, and then maybe the 7th day, right? So that way you kind of like spread out your posts and it doesn't appear like you are just constantly spamming different subreddits of the same posts. And not only does this help your account not get banned, but it also makes it less obvious to people where you're just out there trying to promote your own product and you're not really trying to help users, because most of the people, especially in smaller communities, they tend to recognize who are the ones who are constantly posting and whether they're constantly posting about the same thing, promoting their product. And if that's the case, it's very easy for the mod to then find out and then potentially ban you as well. And another observation that I made for this user is the variety of posts that he makes. For example, here he said, it was more of like a post where he's just celebrating about his latest achievement. And then here is just sharing his progress. And then he will also make posts like this, where he's kind of like sharing his struggle of getting 5 to 10 signups a day, but no revenue. So all of these things are relevant to these subreddits because it kind of shares the daily struggles of him building the product. And then it also serves as good content to these communities as well. And then lastly, if you just go to the comments that he makes, and as you can see, a lot of his comments are actually just him engaging in his own posts. For example, cheers, I got 30 users in the last 2 days is, guys, drop your app website, and then he's also promoting his own product. So a lot of these comments are purely just him promoting his own products, which is fine, but I think we tend to want to be more careful when we do this, because there are a lot of communities where they don't really allow you to self-promote this way. But in this case, if you look at the posts that he's commenting in, most of them are directly asking people on what product they're building. In that case, then it makes sense to share the product that you're building and also the landing page, the URL as well. But I think in more indirect posts, for example, a user is struggling, is asking for a solution, and that solution may not necessarily relate to what you're building, but you still link your product into that post, then in that case is a very easy way for them to ban you. One thing to note is when you can drop your product versus when you can't. For example, when we look at this user's comments, he tends to drop his product in posts like this. For example, guys, drop your app/website. I will give you my honest feedback. And so in that case, when the post is directly asking for you to drop your app/landing page, then feel free to do so. But if it is a post that is more towards asking for help, and it may not necessarily relate to the product that you're building, but you somehow still manage to find a way to squeeze in your product and the URL, then in that case, I would tend to stay away from that, because that can be dangerous. And it's highly possible that if you do that a couple of times, your account will get banned. So you can also see that he engages in a variety of posts. For example, here, what's a solopreneur? And then he proceeds to do a lot of engagement in his own posts as well. You'll see that he also engages in subreddits that are not necessarily related to his product, but subreddits that he is interested in or communities that he resonates with. And so, for example, here in Programmer Humor, he said, I don't want GitHub stars, I start them all myself. Something like that. So it's a mix of being a user, engaging in the communities that you are personally interested in, as well as a marketer on the platform where you are promoting your product in such a way that adds value for other people. Now, if you take a look at the second example, my startup just reached 14K per month. Here's exactly how I got my first paying customers. And then he proceeds to share how exactly he has done it. And so he's definitely doing something right. And you can also see that in his post, he has also included his URL to his product as well. So let's check out his profile, and we want to see how he's exactly posting, what kind of posts that he's doing, and also how he's engaging, what kind of communities that he's engaging in, and how is he engaging. So let's click into his profile. And you can immediately see that with all the posts that he has made, most of them did pretty well. And if you realize, a lot of them are focused towards sharing lessons or educating fellow SaaS owners on how they can grow their SaaS as well. For example, here, talking to people before building took me from failed projects to 9,000 in revenue. That is extremely valuable because a lot of people tend to just go ahead and build the product before even talking to actual customers. And then the second post is how I got my first users for my SaaS with $0 spent. Let's just click into this post and see how he did it exactly. These are actual lessons and actual step-by-step guide that he's actually providing to the entrepreneur community. And these are highly value-adding posts, right? And also note that in this particular post, he does not even push his product. There's no link, there's no URL to his product. And I think where this type of post adds value is to show people in the community that you are there to actually help and not just to constantly promoting your product. Because when you post, you want to make sure that at least 30% of your posts are actual value add and not for promotion purposes. And then maybe the other 70%, it can be more a mix of promotion and non-promotion posts. Because you want to get your name out there, in this case, Felix Haika. He wants to make sure that his name is well recognized in the community so that when he makes a post and when he includes the link of his product, people will know that he only includes it when it is absolutely necessary and he's not there to, just use it as a free ad space, for example. And this user has also shared how his post has performed on Reddit and how it has helped him for his product. And so if you just look at this screenshot here that he has shared, you can see that there's a lot of highly targeted eyeballs to his posts, right? For example, in the first post, we can see that there's 700 views. In the second post, in Indie Hackers, he had 2,000 views. In SaaS, there is 5.5k views. And so this easily adds up to about 8,000 targeted eyeballs that would potentially be a customer of his product. And if you realize, none of these posts are highly viral. Like this one has 3 upvotes, this one has 5 upvotes, 4 comments, and then the last one has 9 upvotes and 6 comments. So these are all quite average posts. And so what this means is that as long as you're writing highly valuable content for the community, even a small number of upvotes to your post would do a great deal in terms of helping your product get your first set of customers. Because imagine if, let's say in this case, we have 8,000 views, and let's say because these are highly targeted eyeballs, so on average, when we target cold customers who are not interested in our products at all, the conversion rate is usually 1 to 2%. But let's say in Reddit, because we are writing highly valuable content in relevant subreddits in which most of the people inside it who are viewing our posts are people who are already naturally interested in our product, I would say the conversion can be up to 10%. And so if we have 8,000 eyeballs here and we multiply by 10%, that will be easily 800 customers that will be purchasing your product. And so you can see the power of posting on Reddit. Let's have a look at his comments and what kind of things that he writes on a daily basis. You can see that he actually comments on other subreddits that are completely irrelevant to his product. For example, in the running community. So it seems like he's active in the running community and also entrepreneur. And so when it comes to his engagement on the platform, you can see that he does a mix of 2 things. One is commenting on subreddits that are completely irrelevant to the product that he's selling. So in that way, he's kind of like acting as a normal user where he's just, engaging in any community that he's interested in. And then also within the community that he is selling his products and using it as a distribution channel, he also actively engages in other people's posts as well. For example, in this one, we have a post by this user called kickback, and he's asking what job will you do after selling business. And then he will engage saying, I will definitely start a new one, maybe do it with less hours depending on how well off you are from the sale. So in that way, he's not just always commenting to engage in his own posts or making posts to promote his products, but he's also engaging on other people's posts within the same community and also posts from outside of this community as well. Now moving on to our final and last example, we have Course Spare 7641. And you can see that his post went pretty viral here. He has 50 upvotes. And he basically said, I vibe coded a web app, is growing, I don't know what to do next. So this post is kind of like masked as a post that is sharing his struggles and looking for advice. But at the same time, he's kind of also promoting his product in some way. So if you just do a Control F and see if he has included a link somewhere in this post. Okay, in this case, he hasn't. So let's see what he says. A couple of weeks ago, I hacked together a little project. Anyways, I shared it on Reddit. Suddenly, people started signing up. Within days, hundreds of users, and then so you can see that he also got a lot of users from Reddit. Now I'm in the weird stage where ideas validated to me. And so you can imagine that if you're someone reading this post and you are a SaaS owner, you will be quite curious about what is this app that he's building that is getting so much traction. And so the natural next step is you will then click into his profile, and then as you scroll down the posts and comments that he made, you would eventually bump into a post like that went really viral. So let's just click into it, right? Because I'm a SaaS owner, I'm curious how he's getting so much traction. And this Spanish subreddit clearly relates to his product, probably. And then what you eventually see is, he said, oh, I also found the interview with the cast plus crew in Spanish, his product URL here. And then if you click, it brings you to his landing page. And so just from this example alone, you can already see the value of just posting things that doesn't include your URL, but you just subtly mentioning that you have already launched a product, gained some traction, what should I do next? Which would then prompt people to go to your profile, check you out, and then maybe if he includes his product link in his bio as well, then these are all just different ways in which you can funnel people into your product landing page. And then if we further analyze the kind of post that this user makes, he posts a mix of also in his own personal interests, like Sunhaven, for example, which doesn't really relate to his language app. This is about games. And then also in communities like startups, side projects, and then this No Stupid Questions one as well, which did really well, by the way, 10,000. Let's just see if he promoted his product here, right? Everywhere I look, people are flexing. Okay, so this is clearly a post that relates to his language app, but he doesn't explicitly mention about his product. But I think where this is powerful is that posts would just make Reddit as a platform like you more, because we're obviously driving a lot of engagement to the platform. You have 10K views. And then what this means is also that this post will probably be on the popular page on Reddit, and then people will see this user, they might click into his profile, which would then convert them into potentially a paying customer on his landing page. And then you can see that in terms of frequency, he's actually posting pretty often. So 5 days ago. So these are all in a single day. And then 7 days ago, so about 2 days apart, 8 days, 11 days. So you can see that on average, he makes about 2 to 3 posts a day in the interval of 2 to 3 days. And then you can see that all of these posts are all targeting his target audience, right? Which is people who are trying to learn languages, like learn French, Japanese language, etc. But then let's look at his comments, right? Because clearly most of his posts here is a mix of just observations of his, like for example, why do people stick with Duolingo when people with 1,000-day streaks still can't speak the language? And then some are kind of sharing his built in public journey of his language app. And then if you go into comments, we can see that he engages in other people's posts in relevant subreddits, like for example, language learning. He'll respond to this post who asked, how can you learn any language with YouTube? And because his product directly relates to YouTube and also language learning, because essentially what this user's product does is that it allows you to include a URL inside and then state what kind of language that you want to learn, and then you can just create the deck automatically. And so this post right here directly relates to his product. And so what he did was that he said, this is exactly why I built Vocabi, to make learning a language natural and fun. Even though his comment got 6 downvotes here, but I think it's definitely quite worth it, because this post that has 62 upvotes would probably have about 8,000 views. I mean, we can just have a reference here, right? Just from this post that has 9 upvotes, there is 5.5k total views. And so if this post has 62 upvotes, you can already imagine the amount of views that this subreddit would have. And by the way, there's also 382,000 learners in this subreddit alone. So you can imagine the exposure that this particular post has for his product as well, just by simply commenting his product. Getting a few downvotes, that's fine, as long as you don't get banned. And it's not like he provided the URL as well, right? He's just saying, this is why exactly I built this product, to make it easier to learn. And then if you're interested, you can just check out my product. But he did not say that, right? It's like implied. And then you can also see that he also comments in like completely irrelevant subreddits again, like Naruto, for example. And so yeah, as you can see, there's actually a common theme that goes across all these three examples. And they're essentially, number one, strike a good balance of being a user and a marketer. And this means that when you are engaging in subreddits, make sure that you're engaging in a mix of subreddits that are completely irrelevant to your product that you would typically market for. For example, if you're selling a SaaS to productivity bros, for example, then you would obviously also want to make sure that you're commenting in things that are irrelevant to that. For example, if you're interested in running, if you're interested in anime, if you're interested in frisbee, whatever it is, just make sure that you are actively engaging in these subreddits. And then at the same time, you can also actively engage in things that are relevant to your career. For example, if you're building a software, then you can always engage in indie hacker, build in public, SaaS, micro SaaS subreddits, but not as a marketer of your own product, but just be there, add value for people, commenting on people's posts that people are asking for help that you know the answer to, provide as much value as you can, because all of this will eventually add up and people will start to recognize you in the subreddit as an active contributing member. And eventually when you start to make posts about your product, they will also be more receptive and be willing to check it out, and then maybe also even provide helping you spread the word and become paying customers as well. And then the second thing is to make sure that you engage more than you post. So I think a good ratio to think about this is 70% comment, 30% post. And then comment is basically what I've just mentioned, which is being a user, commenting in subreddits that are irrelevant to your product, and also those that are relevant to your career, for example. And then for the other 30%, you can post about your product, but it can be a mix of directly linking your product within the post, or not linking it, but just subtly mention that you've built this product in the past, and then whatever that goes on in your post, whether you're asking a question about it, etc., where if people are interested in, they will then click into your profile, and then potentially they might see your product linked in your bio or in your other posts that you have made, which will then convert them into traffic. And then the last finding is when you're posting, the goal should always be to add value. You want to make sure that your product is always tailored to the community. So for example, in an earlier example, we saw that this particular user has the same exact post, but in different subreddits, he has essentially tweaked the way that the title is written so that it is relevant to the people who are viewing it from that particular subreddit. For example, in a vibe coding community, you want to position your product as a vibe coded product, for example, whereas for a SaaS or micro SaaS subreddit, then you might want to be more focused on user acquisition. And then the second thing is you want to make sure that the post that you're making in that particular subreddit is actually providing value based on what the audience in that particular community is looking for. For example, if you're selling a product about, maybe you own a baby's brand, and somehow you find relevance in posting about your product in a SaaS subreddit, for example, and then you try to add value in some way about how you build your baby's brand, which may not necessarily relate to what the audience are looking for in that particular subreddit, but you try to force your way through. And this type of post usually would not work because there always need to be natural synergy. And then thirdly, always engage in your own posts. So for example, if you have made a post and people start commenting in it, make sure to always seek to add value for people who are responding to your posts. And then the last thing is, do not spam posts. And what I mean by this is, a natural tendency is every time when you write a post and you want to blast it out to all the subreddits that you can think of within the span of an hour. And this is the easiest way for you to get banned. And what I recommend you to do is, every time when you write a post, just have a reflect on the kind of value that your post is writing, and then think about which subreddit can benefit the most from your post from a value perspective, and then just post it there, receive feedback, gather what people are writing and commenting on your post, and how you can help them further. Wait 2 to 3 days, refine your existing post based on the users' comments, feedbacks, refine it, and then post it in another subreddit, for example. So this is how you can continue your loop. Either that, or if you have a new idea or post that you want to write, you can also always write a fresh post and then go through the same process again of thinking where this particular post can add the most value for, and then posting in that subreddit. And I think this is a very natural process of finding and identifying your customers as well. Because based on the things that you're writing, if it adds value for your prospects or your community, then very naturally they will also want to eventually check out your product as well. So now you may be wondering, there are other platforms that can allow you to do similar organic marketing as well. For example, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, etc. So why Reddit? So the first reason is because of generative engine optimization. In case you don't know what GEO is, it is essentially the equivalent of search engine optimization, but for AI. This means that instead of me going onto Google and searching for a particular keyword and then getting the search results, which is your SEO, now the AI is the one who is going to be doing it. And so if your product is GEO optimized, AI is more likely to come across your product when it searches the web, and then show your products to potential customers as well when the users ask for product recommendations. Here's how it works in practice. So let's say I ask a question like, what is the best way to market on Reddit? And what you see is a lot of the sources that this AI is currently getting its answers from actually comes from sources like, it could be Zapier, Wpromote, etc. But you see that a lot of it actually comes from Reddit. In fact, most of the sources here are actually from Reddit itself, like how to market on Reddit. And then if you click into any of these posts, you'll see that these are all generated by certain users. For example, in this case, the Max Businessman, and his post has just 3 upvotes, right? It also made it into one of the posts that AI is referring to when it searches the web. And so if let's say I'm a marketer right now and I want to find some tools that will allow me to market more effectively on Reddit, so I might ask AI to suggest me some tools. So I'll say, can you suggest me some tools that would allow me to effectively market on Reddit and faster as well? And so again, you can see that it's actually referring to Reddit sources as well in terms of what are the tools that you should recommend the users. And so this is where I talked about where if you have a post that went pretty viral and it's kind of like including a lot of keywords that would relate to what your customers will eventually search for in AI, chances are your product would also make it into this search as well. And then your product would then appear in one of these lists here. And then the second benefit is that it brings in highly qualified prospects and warm traffic to your landing page. Because of Reddit's nature of community-based content, this means that the chances of people who are looking at your posts and already having a genuine interest is much higher than any social platforms out there. These are users who read, probably engaged, and who actually cared about the context behind your product. The last and also the best part is that your post doesn't need to go viral. A few solid posts across multiple communities can still bring in thousands of highly targeted eyeballs. Now, of course, when there's pros, there's also cons. As you already know, my account got suspended because I was spam posting and linking my products wherever I can. So this is a real risk and something that if you want to get into Reddit marketing, you should definitely watch out for. And then the second downside of this approach, if you haven't already realized, is that it requires a lot of time investment, because finding the right post to engage in, writing a reply to these posts, and then also writing high value posts about your product or potentially not related to your product, all takes a lot of time. But of course, there's ways in which you can make this whole process a lot easier for yourself by automating parts of the process where it makes sense. So the first option is using a tool like F5bot, and essentially what this does is that it would send you automated emails or notifications every time when your keyword is discovered on these platforms, so Reddit, Hacker News, and Lobster. So what you can do is you can sign up an account here, and then you can go ahead and list your keywords. So I'm just going to show you how to do this. In my case, I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in. So once you have signed up, you'll see this page here where you can create a new alert for keywords. And so maybe I'll write automation here, and then I'll ignore the flex for now, and then I'll create. So this is the downside of F5bot, because If you're monitoring keywords that are in high demand, it will ask you to become a power user, which will then require you to pay a subscription fee. And if you check it out, it's actually $13 a month, which is, depending on use case, it can be pretty pricey. And so if you don't want to be limited in terms of the keywords that you can automate and search for and be notified, you can actually use end-to-end to automate the workflow to do this exactly. This is a workflow that I built that achieves a similar purpose with the F5 bot. The only difference is that instead of being notified instantly when a keyword is found on platforms like Reddit, this one essentially automates a process where in every periodic cycle, for example, whether it's one day, a week, a month, etc., it will scrape subreddits of your choice in a particular niche. For example, in my case, for marketing automations, I've set to monitor r/marketing automation. And so every morning, I will essentially get a list of emails in my inbox like this. So whether it is startup related, automation related, investing related, vibe coding, or marketing and e-commerce, I can then just have a bird's eye view of all the posts that has performed well, and then where can I add value in these posts, how can I engage, and then maybe taking some ideas of what kind of post performs well in this particular subreddit, and then maybe making a post myself as well. So this is how this workflow can come in very handy in making the process a lot easier as you seek to engage more actively and posting more actively in Reddit. And I won't bore you with the details about how this workflow essentially runs, but the way that you will set it up is essentially you will provide the topic, marketing automation, which then will be used for the subject name. And then subreddits is the subreddits that you want to monitor. The email is the email that the email digest will be sent to. And then these are just like restrictions and constraints that you set for the types of posts that you want to scrape. For example, in this case, we set a cutoff time of the last day, meaning we only want to look at posts that has been posted over the last 24 hours here. And then we also set a cutoff score of 15, meaning to say that we only want to see in my inbox posts that has an upvote score of 15 and above. And then the thing that will get out is the emails. And then you can also set, whether you want to get this on a daily basis, at what time every day. And you can also configure your time zone as well, which is in the settings here. You can download this, if you're interested in this template, you can download it in my SKOOL community, which I will link in the video description down below. And if you're interested in how I built this particular workflow, you can always check it up in the video card above, where I essentially detailed out a 20 minutes video on how this workflow actually runs, what happens under the hood for each of these sub workflow nodes, and how you can then set it up and further configure it to your own use cases. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be releasing a video detailing the exact step-by-step Reddit marketing system, as well as more Reddit automation workflows that you can use to grow and distribute your product on Reddit. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you are notified when the video are released. Also, I run a SKOOL community of business owners and marketers who are all looking to grow their businesses. And if you're watching this video till now, you probably understand how important marketing is to grow and scale any business. And the goal of the SKOOL community is to help fellow business owners do exactly that in a high leverage way by automating high impact marketing processes. If this is something that can benefit you, make sure to check it out in the video description below. In the meantime, if you're interested, feel free to also check out my other video where I teach you how to build the Reddit 24/7 monitoring tool. Alright, that's it. Thanks. Peace.